Do you want to make a real impact on the lives of children and families? Are you passionate about supporting the fostering community? Then prepare to meet the game changers, the innovators. Prepare to meet the fostering pioneers. Welcome to the Fostering Pioneer podcast, where we shine a light on the incredible work of fostering pioneers in Wales. We'll be talking to the carers who are stepping up, sharing their experiences and driving positive change in the fostering community. Join us as we explore the Fostering Pioneer programme, discover how these carers are making their voices heard and how you can get involved. It's time to be inspired. It's time to hear from the pioneers. Let's get started. Welcome, Jenny, to the podcast. It's great to have you here, and a really big thank you for being part of it, our Pioneer podcast. So I wonder first, you could just say a little about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Hopper. I live in Buckley in Flintshire, and I've been foster carer for about 6-7 years now. It's my second career, if you like, because I didn't actually start being a foster carer till I was in my mid-60s, and obviously people think I'm a lot more experienced than I really am. But yeah.
You are very experienced. From our few chats so far, you've come across with a lot of experience of fostering. So I'm excited to hear kind of a bit about your story and about the pioneer role. But before we get into that then, so what was it that made you decide to become a foster carer those sort of 6-7 years ago?
Well, in the previous career, I was a careers advisor. And obviously, as part of my duties, I met children who were in care quite regularly. And I was astonished by the statistics that I saw that said that how few of them actually manage much academic achievement, and particularly not many of them get into higher education. And so when my daughter actually suggested that I become a foster carer, it was that knowledge and that background that made me think, actually, this is something I could do that would help young people who were struggling to find a path into staying in education. And it's something that stayed with me. I'm a very strong advocate of not having meetings during the school day and making sure that children aren't. It does happen occasionally, you get people who say, oh, well, they're in care, they're a waste of space. And that really is not something I'm happy with. But yeah, because they have disrupted education, it makes studying harder. And I think the more foster carers there are, the more chance children have of actually getting into a school and staying there till they finish their education and being safely placed and long-term, rather than chopping and changing all the time, which is what occasionally happens, unfortunately.
A big factor was your professional experience of working with young people and seeing the need.
Absolutely.
The importance of stability and permanence. So, I mean, was it an easy process becoming a foster carer? How did you find that?
I found it quite interesting because the sort of the background checks, they made you really think about where you came from and what you do and the people around you. And then we're doing the Skills for Fostering course myself, and sort of hearing some other stories of other foster carers, But I mean, and some of it sounded awful, of course, but obviously, every child who comes into care is a child in need. So it doesn't matter where they come from. It's what you can do for them when they arrive that's important. So, yeah.
Of course. And so thinking ahead then to more recent years, so you've been a foster care for, I think you said 7 years, but you also became a fostering pioneer. So I wondered, what was the reason behind becoming a fostering pioneer?
Well, about 2 or 3 years after I became a foster carer, I had an opportunity to become a mockingbird hub carer. The first one in Wales, is my proud boast. And so I did that for 3 years throughout the lockdown. But by the time we got to the end of lockdown, and I carried on for another year, but I'm not young, and running around after 3-year-olds is not easy for me. The perils of old age, really. And I felt that I'd got the group set up, it was running, and it was fairly stable. And I thought, this is a time to bow out and do more normal fostering rather than the sort of the mockingbird hub carer role, which I enjoyed and in a way I still miss. But it was because of that I'd been so used to being busy doing that when I went back into normal fostering, I thought, well, I can do the pioneer role because I've got the experience, and now I'm not a hub carer. I've got more time. So it seemed like a natural fit to carry on using the experience I've gained, but not in such a sort of full-on role as hub carer.
So I'm aware, Jenny, that I think for a lot of our listeners will be based in Wales, and I know that mockingbird is fairly limited in Wales at the moment, so it's just in Flintshire, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So would you mind just briefly saying what mockingbird is, just for those listeners who may not have heard of it?
Right, yeah, it's a way of making, if you like, a surrogate family for a group of foster carers and their children, their own children as well as the children they look after. The idea being that they all have then a group of maybe 8 families, and who all know each other, and the children know each other. And it's amazing how fast they gel. After lockdown, the first time we were allowed out, we went to a local beauty spot called Loggerheads, and a lot of us hadn't met in person because of lockdown. But there was a lot of introductions. But the children who ranged in age from 3 to 12, maybe the odd 15-year-old, I think, they vanished as a group. They all went off and they were playing in the river and mucking about with a distant eye from us. And they just suddenly became a gang. And they all knew that each other were in the same position. They were all in care. And obviously there's some birth children as well. But they all knew where they stood. Nobody was going to ask them awkward questions. Nobody was going to be surprised if some of the behaviour was slightly different from the norm. So it really, really worked. And it meant that, when somebody was going into hospital for just a day appointment, I could oik the child and take them out with me and whatever I was doing. It meant that they could have sleepovers with each other. Where we could, we got siblings involved in the same mockingbird group so that they had a natural contact. As it wasn't like meeting over a cup of coffee in a cafe. It was just coming to my house, so they did, just having a pizza and watching the telly, just doing normal stuff, but together.
Yeah, it just sounds more like closer to the normal family experience that you'd want for any child, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just being part of a community, and things like not needing to use terms like respite because you're staying with Jenny.
Yeah,
it's much better, and I think that's a really helpful explanation actually about what mockingbird is. And I think something I've noticed being involved in the Pioneer program for the last few years is just the range of experiences that people have who become pioneers. So it sounds like you've really used your experience in mockingbird to kind of benefit your role as a pioneer, which is great to hear. And I kind of wonder, thinking about your role as a pioneer now, so what are some of the things that you do as a pioneer? What's the sort of day-to-day tasks and things that you're involved in?
We monthly run a coffee morning with minimal appearance of social workers. It used to be that the coffee mornings were run by social workers and they would use them as a training opportunity. People didn't want to go on a training opportunity. They wanted to go and sit and chat and catch up with their mates. And so that's what it does now. Most of the time, that's where we go. And we also have a specific mother and baby group every month that is just for people who have small ones. And it's nice, again, because they can all catch up, exchange notes, and the children get a chance to play together with others who, they're often too young to really understand. But again, it gives them a sort of chance to meet other children and play. And yeah, we're expanding it, actually. It's going from just sort of babies into mothers and toddlers. So we are sort of increasing the age range because we've got a venue now where we can do things that are appropriate for different age range. As well as that, we do what we're asked. And if somebody needs a bit of support, I know sometimes it's been a phone call, and giving people like names of people who can take them further where they need to go. sometimes it can be as simple as taking a child away so that somebody can have a rest. You know.
I remember when we've spoken before, Jenny, you've mentioned about a sort of system where you go and pick up the baby so the foster carer can have a few hours sleep.
That's not something that's happened very often, but it was a particular child who had an issue with feeding and needed to be fed every 2 hours. Now, you can't get a lot of sleep in that space of time. So I took the child to contact with its birth parents, which meant that the foster carer actually got more like 3.5 hours, which is long enough to have a nap, you know. And just sometimes you just need that. I mean, it's not necessarily to sleep, but just to be able to have a chat with your own kids or nip to the shops without worrying about the baby, you know, anything like that. But on this occasion, it was just sleep that she needed.
The coffee mornings sound great. I think I often hear about pioneers sort of running these sort of events. So just a bit more informal, because I think, and it's important, isn't it, that it's minimal involvement of social workers, because it's not a training thing. It's not about, you know, quiz the social worker or the other way around. It's about having a chat, having a moan sometimes, and just sharing experience and with people who understand it, because they're in the same position. They're also foster carers.
And it also is an exchange of information. I mean, there was a new development in baby bottles that I hadn't never heard before. But somebody had one, and there was a really interesting discussion amongst them and other people with babies about the advantages of this particular kind of bottle. But that only happened because they were all at the coffee morning. So it's informal, but stuff does happen. And also sometimes you want to talk about things, and a lot of people are quite scared of talking in case they get into trouble. I mean, you know, in case somebody thinks what they're doing is inappropriate. And so it's better to ask others who do the job, and then you can get the right advice.
Oh, rather than talking to social workers.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yes,
You know, you might need to go to social workers, but the first port of call is your peer group. And I think that's very useful for everybody. And also, because we sort of move the venues around, so it gives different people a chance to get, because Flintshire's quite a long, thin county, so moving quickly, you know, go the other end, it's a long drive. But yeah, I mean, it's always useful to have routes. I mean, one of the pioneers set up a WhatsApp page to organise a Christmas meal. And it's still running sort of 2 years later. But now it's a useful platform for us to pass on information and know that a lot of people who maybe don't get to the coffee mornings will see it through this group. So it's just another informal route into passing stuff on and making sure people know what's going on. I mean, that could be anything from organising the Christmas dinner to passing on information about dates when you get paid, and things like that, you know, because what one person doesn't know, somebody else will. And, you know, it's the same with web pages and useful stuff like that. So there's always somebody who knows how to do it.
Yeah, I think sort of those points of connection are really important. So I think, because as you know, I'm a foster carer as well. And my wife and I fostered a little boy with quite severe medical needs around eating and feeding and things. And he was in hospital lots. And I remember we joined a Facebook community of people from around the world who had children with the same condition. It was quite a rare condition. And that made such a difference, just having people who could say, oh, don't get this brand or get that brand, or make sure you ask the consultant about this. And it made the world of difference, because otherwise we would have been completely alone. I think the same thing is when you're fostering, to have experienced foster carers and others already in it just to chat to is so powerful, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah.
What I remember when we talked previously as well, you mentioned as well, Jane, about skills to foster, because I know that you sort of supported that. Is that right?
Yeah, I've done 2 now, but I'm eager to do more. I love it. I love the opportunity to speak to people who want to do what I do, and also to pass on the experience. I remember at one particular event, they were talking about what do you do if you're told to take a phone off a child. And there were various suggestions. And I said, well, I always tell them it's the court's decision, because it isn't the social worker or the foster carer who decided that they need to lose the phone. It's the court that makes the decisions. And they've then got something sort of amorphous to aim at, to blame. And they're not blaming the people who can't do anything about it, which is their own foster carers. And so I think to sort of put the blame on the people who actually decide these things is much better. And I could see people writing it down, because we all have that issue with teenagers, don't we? And it's very difficult if they blame you because they've lost their phone and it's not your decision in the first place. So, yeah.
I agree. My son recently broke his phone. So he would throw it across the room onto the sofa. Because we have a rule at meal times that no phones at meal times. So I gave him a look, put your phone away. So rather than getting up, he launched it across the room. At which point it hit the wall and the screen popped off. So he's had to learn to experience the consequences of his actions. But it's great to hear all the stuff you're involved in. So even, so it's coffee mornings, it's supporting foster carers with young children, it's a WhatsApp group, it's being at Skills to Foster, talking about your experience. And I just think it's amazing all the stuff that you're involved in as a pioneer. And I know as well from what I know of the pioneers in Flintshire that it's a bigger team, it's not just yourself. So I wonder, have you sort of seen the benefits of working as a team in Flintshire?
Yeah, I mean, because we sort of, when we organise things, people do have different roles. And because, as I say, most of my colleagues have quite young children, I'm tending to be the one that, and I've got a car when I can drive, then so that I can easily sort of drop things because my fosterling's 16. So it's not so difficult to leave them, when I want to do something or need to do something for fostering. And we all have, one of them is a very organised person. Somebody else is really good at sort of finding stuff, doing the research. I'm sort of general body. I'm the last one to join the pioneers, so I tend to pick up where I can and make sure I'm there if other people can't get things like that. Because it's easier for me with the age of my fosterling. But so yeah, we all have our different sort of places in the system.
That's good. And I mean, is there, for you and your experience of being part of the pioneer group, has there been any sort of particular challenges in being a pioneer and things that are more difficult?
No, I mean, occasionally there's things like I had somebody in placement who was not keen on coming home at night. One of my fellow pioneers lived in the town where this child went to and was quite happy to say to me, well, look, she can always come here for the night if necessary. So there was that kind of, not necessarily to do with supporting other people, but also supporting each other, which I was very grateful for.
That's a lovely example. I think, that's often what we say when we talk to new pioneers, that you're not just, in the role of giving and supporting others, you do benefit from other pioneers as well, whether in training or just in chatting to other pioneers who are experienced carers. But then that's a really practical way as well that's a lovely idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. So we're sort of nearing the end of all our questions that we pre-planned. I threw a few curveballs in as well, but you did very well at answering them. So the last question I want to ask is something a little bit different. Again, quite a practical question, really. So if you are, a parent or a foster carer, or you've got children you're looking after in North Wales, can you recommend a great day out in North Wales?
Well, yes. One of my favourites is Conwy Castle. Now, you need to have fairly sharp eyes because it's a wonderful place for children to go. We used to always get a discount that the children got in for nothing from CADA, but I'm not sure if that's still operating. But Conwy, the town as well, there's two sort of National Trust properties there, or CADA properties, I think they joined. So there's more than one place to go. It's full of little cafes and fish and chip shops. And it's got walls, so so long as you've got enough adults there, it's a place where you're not just got one thing to do, you've got lots of things to do, and it's not very expensive if you can get into CADA for nothing as well.
And because I think, did you mention that you'd been part of a Mockingbird trip a few mockingbird days out. So was that something you did at Mockingbird as well? So
Yeah.
doing days out with it.
Gulliver's World and Green Valley, is that its name? That was quite a long trip. Cost us a fortune to hire the minibus. But that was, again, it was a good day out, but I think it was better for older ones, sort of, I suppose, 5 and above, because there were lots of interesting rides to go on there.
Oh, is that? Oh, do you mean, is it Greenwood? Greenwood. It's excellent. It was a good day, yeah.
Yeah. It's quite a long way from here, so at least it was on the minibus. It seemed like a long way. And the other one we go to when I was running the Mockingbird group, we went every June, was Manly Mere, which is a sort of water park. But it's a place where you need to have a change of clothes for every child. There's like ducking stools. There's a big muddy pond where people sort of go and just throw mud about and get themselves covered in it. There are all sorts of rides and nice things to do as well. And it's in the summer when it's warm. There's these sort of bicycles that have hoses attached, and you aim them at other people, and it's all about getting wet. We had a great time.
Well, that sounds brilliant. Thank you for the brilliant suggestions of what to do in North Wales. And Jenny, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been great to hear a bit about your story about how you became a foster care, but also just about what you've been doing as a pioneer and just all the different things you've been involved in. It's really inspiring. I think our hope is, as people listen to these podcasts, they'll be finding out about what pioneers do, but also get ideas for things they can do to support fostering. So thank you so much for being involved.
Pleasure.